And shortly after that, I ended up backsliding because all of this was just, it was heavy, you know what I mean? And I couldn't talk to nobody about it because when I did talk to somebody about it, just give God some praise, brother. Mr. Norton, just give God praise. It's gonna be all right. God gonna bring you through. I've been doing that.
Yeah. Right.
Been doing that.
Yeah.
It's not shifting. You know what I mean? I don't get it.
Right.
So I ended up backsliding actually later on that year because once again, that was my second to last message I preached. And I ended up backsliding, and I knew it. I knew it. Here's the thing, I knew it. I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was coming. I had the dream 5 years earlier, and some people say it was just a warning. But at the moment, I cried out to God, I said, God, it's never gonna happen to me. But the chain of events that just started happening that whole year, it just led me to the point where I was like, I'm done. I quit.
Yeah.
I quit. Like, I'm not a quitter. People's like, well, you're not even ready for marriage. You quit. Now, I've gotten so much backlash from the church, you know what I mean? And never talked about it. Never, ever talked about it. Because I didn't want to give the negative light to it, you know what I mean? But it's my truth. Like, and they're telling me, like, you quit. You gave up. You're not even ready for marriage. You want to get married, but you're not even ready for marriage.
Wow. Yeah.
Thanks. You made me feel great there. You really made me feel great.
Yeah.
Hold on, what happened? I gotta find this video. Give me a second. And I'm like, you made me feel great. And then like there's different things of like, she's way out of your league. I'm like, oh, you made me feel great again. And I'm just different things of just like knocking me down more and more, not realizing that I'm also dealing with insecurities too. So I got a lot of things I'm battling, but you keep knocking me down.
Right.
And now people supposed to help me ain't helping me.
Yeah.
So I left, and I was bitter. I ain't gonna lie, I was bitter. I still deal with some resentment still to this day.
Right.
And I got to 2020. I left 2018. Started heavily drinking because now I got to deal with all this emotion and this guilt and this rage and everything else, right? Started heavily drinking, slowed down, sped up. It was back and forth, right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And right around COVID, no, it was actually, 2020. God set me down, was like, it's time, bro. It's time.
Wow.
Really? Like, I'm like, it was like a direct saying this time, but I just felt that it was time. You know what I mean? Like, I just really felt that it was time. Like, my spirit was starting to shift. My mentality was starting to shift. Like, I dealt with everything I needed to deal with through drinking, through partying, through trying to make myself happy. Even though I knew I wasn't happy, I was just like, I was trying to make it work. You know what I mean? And God was like, deal with it, right? So I started looking at spirituality. I started getting into spirituality. And the reality is you can't have God without spirituality. They go hand in hand. And we teach that all the time, but we don't really dig deep into the teaching of what spirituality is, right? So we just talk about it, like the Holy Ghost is spirit, you know, but we don't really deal with spirituality. Jesus dealt with spirituality. You know what I mean? That's how he was able to do miracles and heal and prophesy and really get into people's cores and actually have conversations that literally prick people because he dealt with spirituality, right? And so I started digging into spirituality and I got into meditation. And now meditation was something I used to do anyway, but I got deeper into meditation. Because, and so what meditation does is it doesn't just deal with the conscious, but it deals with the subconscious. And the subconscious is the very thing that drives you. Conscious doesn't drive you, your subconscious drives you. And so at that moment, I began to deal with that. Then at that point, I had to be honest about my relationship with my mom. I had to be honest with being in foster care. I had to be honest with being abused at an earlier age. I had to be honest with the trauma that I've dealt with in my past relationships. I had to be honest about how I affected my past relationships because of my trauma. And I just got honest. And that whole year, I can go back to 2020, look at my posts, and they were sad. They
Oh,
were
wow.
sad. But I kept diving.
Mm-hmm.
Kept meditating. I kept
Yeah.
diving. I kept I just kept on diving. I'm like, I
Yeah.
gotta get to the bottom of this. I gotta get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, I was free.
Wow. Wow.
I was free. I was free as a bird. I'm like, wow, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm starting to have better relationships. You know what I mean? Like I'm starting to talk to people and actually get into real relationships. And I'm like, yo, this is dope, man. This is dope. My confidence is building and everything, right? And I'm like, yo, this is dope. This is dope. This is dope. And I started at that time. I started talking about the Black Lives Matter thing was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking about that.
Right.
And then I was still talking about mental health in the middle. And like, I'm just dropping nuggets, right? And then I think it was 2020 or 2021. I did a birthday post.
Okay.
And I mentioned about being an advocate for mental health unconsciously. Like it was just like I'm like, dang. And it struck a nerve. Like, you know, I'm like, oh, wow, I really do that. I really do that, don't I? And at that, I just began to say, okay, God, how do I implement this in my daily life? How do I go through this? And I created a whole message around it, a whole message. I literally have a message because once again, I still keep that connection with God. Like I do what I do, but I still I feel like David at times, right? Like he backslid and messed up, but but the reality is the way that we look at backslid or the church looks at backsliding is not the way that God looks at backsliding.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he said, I'm married to the backslider. And you look at David went years he was in a backslidden state for years. We don't talk about that though. We talk about the time he messed up and the time he repented. But he was in his backslidden state for a minute, but God was still using him.
Right.
Okay. Using them. Now, I probably still like, oh, you gotta get back right. It's going like that full direction will fully happen. But I believe personally in this stage that God is actually using me to shine light on things that aren't really talked about.
Mm-hmm.
By going through the very things that people actually go through in the church. You know what I mean? Like I said, like I'm going through in the church, but I can't figure out why. So recently, and yeah, recently I got into a place where my whole life just shifted. And as a result of sin, honestly, right? But what I come out of it with is it actually showed me the effects that depression actually has, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of sin, but just actually like when I look at these effects of like, I did a post and you commented, and you're like, when you're in quicksand, you just gotta call out for God, right? And
don't move. You don't keep struggling. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I explained this to you, but a lot of people probably don't realize it. But the way that I wrote that post was all spiritual.
Uh-huh.
Because I said, yo, I'm lost, I'm confused, bad, I'm hurt, I'm struggling, right?
You're in cement, you're on, yeah, you was
I'm on cement, like bro, how can you be on cement, quicksand, and the waves of Russia, right? But the one thing that I noticed was my peace was still intact.
Yeah.
My mind was still intact, right? My mind was still intact. And one of the biggest misinformation is that when you go through depression and mental health, unhealthy mental health, you're just in this place of complete chaos, right? And you're just at any moment you're a ticking bomb, right? That's one of the first things that people think, right? Is at any moment you're just a ticking bomb. And what I realized in this state, and maybe it's because of my accountability, maybe it's because of my relationship with God, maybe it's because of my self-awareness. But what I realized is that even though I'm in this state, because I'm still in the state, I haven't got out of it yet. I'm moving out of it.
Right.